If your game uses collisions and you're not using collision layers yet, then there's a whole lot that you're missing out on. Collision layers can help to streamline your game's design, save you time, and give you more flexibility to customize the interactions between all the pieces in your game's world. So let's jump right in there. What's up everybody, welcome to My Pixel. As always, it's awesome to have you here. So today here we just have a sample game with a hero character, this ninja dude here. We got an enemy here, and I think this is new, but it's a power up. So to start, I didn't want the enemies to be able to pick up the power up, so I had to code. Actually, hold on, let me just show it to you. So we'll run the game. So here's this guy running through. I go ahead, I can pick up the power up, and then actually let's try that again. Sorry. Okay, so I'll go in here, right? Usually I shoot some things that look like that. If I pick up the power up, then I can shoot red ones here. And then, so this power up is for me, right? It's for the ninja guy. I don't want this skeleton to touch it. So I had to code it so that he wouldn't touch it, right? As you can see right now, he can't touch it, but I can pick it up. So how I did that was, over here we got the hero character going to this script here, going to the red orb that we picked up. So inside of here we've got on body entered signal, and then what we're doing here is we're checking to see if the body that entered, if it has the name or if it has the text hero in the body's name, then we go ahead and do what we want to do. So since the ninja character is, or the name of the object is actually hero 01, since hero's in the name, it's allowed to pick up the orb. For the enemy, it's called skeleton. So obviously hero's not in that name, so the skeleton can't pick up the orb. Jumping back into the code for the red orb, take a look at this code over here. So there's nothing wrong with this, right? Everything works fine. The hero can pick it up. The skeleton cannot. That's exactly what we want. But this might not be a scalable solution. What I mean is, let's just say maybe we have more elements. That could be more characters or other objects in our game that we also want to interact with the power-up. In that case, we would have to add more code to allow the power-up to react to those specific objects. So what I mean here is, let's just say, remember one of those crane games or where those claws come down and you try and get the stuffed animal? Let's say we get one of those claws, right? So one of those claws comes down out of the sky over here and tries to pick up this orb. Well, that claw would need to interact with the orb as well as the hero. So in that case, what we'd have to do is we'd have to add like some or statement or something like that, right? We could do an or. It's imaginary, right? I didn't actually draw a claw or enable any of this, but just gonna type the code as if it exists. But you would just type claw in body name, right? If you had more elements, then you might have to do another or, and then so on and so forth. You can see how this can get lengthy if you've got any number of objects. So that's one thing that may happen. Another thing that may happen is, let's just say, well, we have this red orb for a power-up. There's a good chance you're going to also have other power-ups. You could have a blue orb, a green orb, or a blue mushroom, who knows. But you could have all these things, and when you create those objects, you would have to also create this bit of code in every single object to make sure that only these specific characters or other items in your game would be able to interact with that orb properly, or power up properly. As you can probably imagine by now, this just doesn't scale very well. So this is where collision layers will come in, and how they work is this. Your objects will have a collision layer that they exist in, and a collision layer that they will look into for collisions. So let's just take this orb for example. This is where we'll find some of the settings for collision layers. This layer up here is the collision layer that they exist in, and this area with the mask is the collision layer that it will look in to find collisions. So if an object exists in layer 1, this right here is layer 1, as you can see here. If an object exists in layer 1, it cannot collide with an object that exists in layer 2, unless we tell it to look in layer 2 for collisions. Now what this does is it effectively allows you to set certain objects to ignore collisions with certain other objects without the need for any additional code like we had to type in here. Now just a quick note before we get on with the rest of the tutorial, but while I was planning this tutorial, I actually found it kind of hard to illustrate the benefits of this collision layer system. There are going to be times where you can benefit a lot from this feature, and then other times just maybe not so much. However, I do believe that this is a great feature worth knowing how to use. Even though I'm not able to explain all the ways that I found collision layers to be useful, just like me, I think you'll eventually stumble upon more reasons to like this feature as time goes on. Also, while I'm not quite sure, I don't have any proof for this, but I do believe that collision layers will or can improve performance, because what it does is it allows the engine to effectively ignore subsets of collisions that it would have had to process otherwise. So I think maybe a good example would be one of those shoot 'em up type games, or one of those bullet hell games, right? You might have seen them, top-down shooter, space airplane, there's like a trillion bullets on the screen. That's a lot of different collisions that could possibly be being processed. So in that sense, maybe you could say, well, the player has to make sure that it can collide with all the bullets, but the enemies don't, right? The enemies don't need to collide with a whole bunch of the other enemy bullets, right? So that's potentially hundreds or even thousands of extra collisions that if you use this kind of collision layer system, now you wouldn't have any need to process that, right? So that's a lot more or a lot less work that your game engine is going to have to do. In any case, I think that's about enough of my long-winded and half-baked explanations, but let's go ahead and get into the actual work. Now to start, we're going to do something cool and go ahead and give custom names to the collision layers, which is going to make it much easier to remember or to understand and remember, rather than trying to remember like something if layer 1 will collide with layer 3 and layer 2 will collide with layer 20 and things like that, right? You can imagine how that's hard to remember. So if we look over here, we did the hovering earlier, we can see that it's called layer 1, layer 2. So that's where we're going to change. We're going to go ahead and give more recognizable names to that there. For that, we're going to go into project settings, if I can get there. Okay, and then let's see, where are we sitting? Actually, if you scroll all the way down, I think I'm there already. You go to this 2D physics, and that'll bring you here. We can see we've got a total of 20 layers here for now. We're going to go ahead and give them names. So we're gonna use 5 different collision layers for the example today. So we're just gonna type them in here. The first one is gonna be hero. Oops. Then we have, so we have the hero layer, the enemy layer, the environment layer, the projectile layer, and the power-up layer. After that, we can just click close. If you, quick note, if you immediately go back and hover over, you're going to see that it didn't update. You have to select something else, click on a different tab, or click on a different node here. Then when you go back, it will have updated. So we see here we have the hero, enemy, environment, projectile, and power up, just like we said. So we have that in the layer, and the mask down here is the same thing, so you'll be able to see the names here also. After that, what we're going to need to do is go ahead and put a bunch of our scenes and nodes and objects and all that good stuff into these layers. So for that, let's start here. Actually, let's start with the hero. So This is our hero scene, so we're just going to modify its default values, default collision layers. We can click here, and it'll be a little bit easier to see what we're working with. So the ninja here is going to exist in the hero layer. That's the only place he should exist. Then, this mask, once again, is where we're going to be looking for collisions. We're not going to look in our own layer for collisions because there's no other heroes on the screen to collide with. So we'll take that off. We should, however, be able to collide with the enemies, the environment. The environment is going to eventually be the tile map will exist here. We're not going to want him to collide with projectiles because at the moment the only projectiles are his own. But we're going to want him to collide with the power-ups. So that's how we do that there. Then we'll move on to the skeleton. The skeleton is going to exist in the enemy layer, and it's going to look into the hero layer because it's trying to kill the hero. It's going to look in the environment layer, the projectile layer because he can get hit by the hero's projectiles. And we're not going to put him in the power-up layer because those aren't for him. Okay. Onto the orb. The orb will exist in the power-up layer, and the orb will only look into the hero layer for collisions. This is our projectile, this shuriken normal. It's going to exist in the projectile layer, as you can imagine. And let's see, we don't want it to collide with the hero. We want it to collide with the enemy because we're trying to kill that thing. It's going to collide with the environment so that right now I've got it set so if projectiles hit the wall, they disappear. If you want your projectile to go through the wall, then by all means ignore the environment or the tile map. Projectiles won't collide with themselves and they won't collide with power-ups. Okay, so that's this. That's that. Okay, let's go ahead and save on all of these. The last one that we have, our tile map is not its own scene, or I didn't make it its own scene. For now, it only exists here, along with the instances of all these other scenes. So we'll just have to modify the tile map settings here. So we want the tile map to exist in the environment layer, and the tile map should be able to collide with the things that are trying to walk on it, right, for one. So the hero, the enemy, and we're going to have it collide with the projectile. And I think with that, we've set up all of our collision layers on everything that we need to right now. With that done, we should now actually be able to remove the code from the power-up that checks specifically for if the ninja touched it. If you remember when we ran our game before, the skeleton could run into the orb, but the player couldn't. Okay, and you all will probably see this guy standing still. All right, so this is like my 10th take at this, but while I was recording this, I figured out that I broke my own game. Right, you see this guy, he used to move, but now he's standing still. Took me a few minutes to figure it out, but I've got it, so I'll show you the fix right now. So the thing is, we created all of these fancy collision layers and everything like that. I was searching through there thinking what went wrong, and finally I figured out that this skeleton guy, he's actually using a raycast to search for collisions and make himself turn around, right? It's for when he runs off an edge. He's not on an edge now, but if he runs off an edge, if the raycast doesn't touch, then he changes direction. But with these changes here, if I can just get it over here, we made it so that the raycast won't collide properly anymore. Alright, so into our scene here, go into this raycast. Inside of here, you'll see this section that says collision mask. So, what is this going to collide with? Right now, it's only going to collide with the hero. Right? We were originally using this raycast to search for collisions with the environment. So we're going to need to go ahead and set it to do that. Right, that's all this raycast is here for. So we'll just set that to environment, and then we should be good. Yeah, a little screw up on my part, but hey, you learn something new every day, right? So we'll get back into here, we'll let it run, and now he should be running back and forth like he's supposed to, so I can illustrate the fact that the skeleton couldn't go and pick up the orb, but the main character could. Okay? So that was before the implementation of the collision layers. Now that we have the collision layers in here, we don't need this code anymore. Right? This check here. Actually, we don't want this claw either because this is the fake code in here, but we don't need to check on this condition if hero is in body name anymore. So, actually, what I'll do is I'll delete this because this was never valid in my project, and then I will go ahead and comment this out. The download for this project is going to be up on Patreon after I'm finished with it here, so I'll just go ahead and comment this out for you all, for all the patrons out there, so that, hey, you can go ahead and see, hey, this used to be in here. If you want it to work like it was before, you can go ahead and put it back in. But right now, we're not going to need it. So if something bangs into the red orb, we just want to run this bit of code unconditionally. Because at this point, the only thing that can possibly bang into the red orb is the hero, not the skeleton. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. Just save. And then with that, we should be able to run the game and get exactly what we need. So let's go. Now, okay, for the first test, let's see if the skeleton can pick up the orb. Right? No, please, please. Okay, there we go. So he can't pick it up. And then the last test is to see if the ninja can pick it up. Yes, he can. Get some fancy red shuriken, blow this guy away. All right. So now, just like we wanted, the enemy can't pick up the power-up, but our ninja or our hero can. And this is all thanks to the setup of the new collision layers. Now, I don't know what kind of games you're all working on out there, but if you've got a lot of stuff on your screen and a lot of collisions are going on, then you're likely to benefit from the use of these collision layers. So get out there and use them. Well, I hope you all found this video helpful. If you did, then please give it a like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on what's coming up next. Also, once again, the sprites, source code, and everything else that I've used in this tutorial today is going to be available for download on my Patreon page. So, if you want to check that out and also support the channel, the link is in the description. Thanks to everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.